现在将录制本次会议。
Hello，大家好，非常高兴大家能够来到我们的 Invalid Consulting 秋招讲座的第2次课。那么我是 Host April。那么今天呢，我们将讲第2节如何去编辑我们的 Resume 和 Cover Letter。那么在讲课之前，希望大家把自己的麦克风去关掉。另外呢，如果大家有任何留言板去留言。今天我们请到的是亚马逊的资深 HR Nella 老师。那么之后我们的讲座将全程用英文来开始。我们讲座再等一下下，马上就要开始。Okay, we're gonna transfer the screen to our mentor Nella, and thank you Nella for joining our lecture, and she will introduce to our students how to edit the resume and the cover letter. And please leave your comment on the chat box, and the last 5 to 10 minutes, Nella will answer all the questions. Thank you so much. Okay, Nella, I'm gonna transfer the screen to you right now.
Do you know how to make the earphone work? Yeah. Put out. I don't know if my earphones problem.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lala. I hope you can see all my screen. So today's lesson is going to be about resume and cover letter writing. So we're going to jump straight in, and as April mentioned, we're going to have the last 5-10 minutes open for questions. Okay, so let's start with the main topic. What is a resume? So your resume, the way you got to think about it, it's not just, it's not just a basic resume that sets, all of your skills and education apart. It's more than that. It's a marketing tool. It's a key component. It's a written inventory, and it's an interview getter. So think about it that, this document is so important that, it's a tool for you to get the job that you want. So think about how much, you can get out of that resume, how many doors it can open to you. So it's really something that you should spend a considerable amount of time building, and learning how to build. That way, you can get the job that you want, and it will, all the time that you put in that resume, it will pay off, because, obviously that's the one thing that can open the door for you for that opportunity. So that's why it's so important that we, go over these essentials, and we get the basics on how to write a good resume. That way, it can open those doors for you. So let's get more into it. So it's a marketing tool. Let me just move this a little bit. Okay, perfect. So it is designed to capture attention and get you to the next stage in the recruitment process. It presents in writing the skills, accomplishments, and qualifications that you bring to a potential employer. It is a key component as well. It is the first essential tool in the job search process. The resume is the first introduction a hiring manager will have of you. You want them to feel drawn in and motivated to invite you in for an interview. So you definitely want to make sure it stands out, and it highlights all of all of your accomplishments. It is also a written inventory. The resume is an inventory of your skills, accomplishments, and experiences and education to date. It should be customized and targeted for each individual position. So there's no such a thing as one resume fits all. It's definitely something that you can edit based on the role that you're applying for. You can highlight certain accomplishments and skills that you have based on, whatever you're applying for in that moment. It is also an interview getter. So this is your ultimate goal with a resume. It tells the hiring manager that you have the necessary experience, skills, and education for the role. So it's really a place for you to show the potential employer that all of your skills, all of your accomplishments, and what you can bring to the table when it comes to your unique skill set. Okay, now let's talk about what should you include in a resume. So that's one thing many people are wondering, what is appropriate. It also, depends on a country where you're applying to. I've seen all kinds of resumes in different countries. You will be surprised, for example, in France, the candidates include their picture, their marital status, the number of kids. So this obviously varies by country. Obviously, for the US market, that would be a no-no, right? So we're gonna focus on the US market and what should a resume include when it comes to, applying for jobs in the United States. So here's a list of what many students include in their resumes. Some may be heading titles or not. Not all resumes will include all these things. Just remember, each job seeker is unique, so it doesn't mean you have to use all of these factors in your resume. However, these are the recommended ones that should definitely be included. So it should have your education, your coursework, computer skills, your projects, leadership activities, co-curricular activities, your internships, your work experience, your volunteer experience, and your awards. You can obviously add, all of your in each job or project. You can add all of your accomplishments as well. Okay, now what makes a good resume? So there should be 4 components. It should be clear, it should be concise, it should be consistent, it should be focused, and we're gonna go a little bit deeper into these factors. So number 1, it should be clear. It gives the reader a clear understanding of who you are, what skills you possess, your accomplishments, and the career path you have chosen. So once you're done with your resume, whenever you look at it, there should be an objective on top of it where you should basically summarize what you're looking for, and you should basically in one little paragraph, you should let the potential employer know what are your accomplishments, what can you bring to the table, and what career are you seeking. So the main things, right? It's kind of like you just want to summarize the whole purpose of your resume in the first paragraph, where you put your objective, this is what I bring to the table, this is my unique skill set, and this is what I'm looking for, this is my passion, this is what I want to pursue in the future. So that should be the main thing, just being clear in the objective header. It should be also concise. Every word has a purpose. Only content that makes you a strong candidate is included. So you should not include stuff that's not relevant to the job. Every recruiter whenever they're looking at the resume, they're only spending sometimes a couple of seconds, sometimes a couple of minutes. However, they have so many resumes to go through, so they do not spend a lot of time reading through every word that you put in there. So make sure that the words that you choose them carefully, because the more you put in, that may hinder the recruiter from getting to the important information. So make sure you only include the most relevant information. If there's any jobs that you have on your resume or any experience that is not relevant to the job, I would suggest that you delete it, just for the sake of applying for the particular job where that, experience is not relevant. That way the information that you actually want the recruiter to read will stand out. Another component is that it should be consistent. There should be a consistent format that will focus the reader on what you have written, not how you have written it. So basically, you don't want to distract the recruiter from reading your resume, because whenever they come across in inconsistent format or grammatical errors, that's the one thing that will unfortunately draw their attention, and they may not pay attention to what you really want to relay as a whole message. Another component, it should be focused. For most people, this is the most challenging part. You must market yourself on your resume. Focus on your achievements, strengths, and skills. Use action verbs. Action verbs are super important because you want to show your accomplishments. You don't want to show, you don't want to just list a bunch of tasks that you had in a job or in school. You want to make sure that you're highlighting your accomplishments and your achievements, strengths, and skills. Okay, now let's talk about transferable skills. Does everyone know what a transferable skill is? It is a skill that's gained in one job that is useful in another. So if you have if you learn something at school or, had an experience at a job, almost any skill can be made into a transferable skill, or at least make it seem like it is a transferable skill on a resume, right? So it's all about the way you form your sentences on your resume. So we'll talk about these examples, how to use these transferable skills. So transferable skill is essentially something that you learned in a job or at school that you can use in a different job. It's something that it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing that you're going to be doing. However, it might be something that you were doing as part of a project and you learn something that can help you, that you can use in your next job. And you want to make sure that whatever it is, you will highlight it in your resume, and you will form it in that sentence in a way where it will show the employer that this is something that you learned and that you can bring to the new job. So they don't have to, that you already bringing something to the table. They don't have to teach you that skill. You already have it and you're bringing it with you. So you're bringing value to the company by bringing this transferable skills. And this is obviously everyone, every employer is looking at what value can this candidate bring to my company. And this is what you want to show them on your resume. You want to show them, these are my skills and this is something that I can transfer. This is something that I learned in my old job, however, or at school. However, it's something that you need. You as my new employer need this. And this is something I can use as an added value to your company. Many high school and college experiences do not directly relate to postgraduate career, but most people can always talk about transferable skills. And I'm going to show you an example. Here's an example of a resume entry describing a yard work job by a student seeking a management trainee position. So there's actually a lot of jobs or projects that you had maybe at school that you might not even think as something that you can use as a transferable skill, but I can guarantee you any experience that you have in school or a job or life, you can use it as a transferable skill. So let's talk about that example. So for example, this particular candidate was a yard care worker, right? So what he wrote is he consulted with customers regarding service and provided feedback to company owner, trained new employees on the use of equipment and proper landscaping techniques, demonstrated punctuality by starting shift at 5 a.m. every day and achieving 100% attendance, exhibited a strong work ethic by providing hard labor in demanding conditions. So here you can see that the job candidate did not talk about the actual duties. That would be obvious. For example, mowing lawns and trimming trees, right? So if you look at his job title, yard care worker, this is something that would come to your mind, right? This is probably what he did. So everyone already knows that. There's no need for him to list those duties because everyone who has common sense already knows this is what he was doing. What he chose to do instead was to highlight the transferable skills that he can use in a professional environment. So even even a manual job as yard care worker, there are components of that job that he can actually use in a professional world, and he was able to highlight those skills. For example, providing feedback to company owner, training employees, demonstrating strong work ethic, stuff like that. So he was able to show those transferable skills and not just list, these were my duties. I was mowing lawn, which is an obvious thing. So this is a perfect example how you highlight and show the transferable skills. And that way he showed that he can be of value for a management trainee position and not just, a manual worker. Okay, let's move to the next one. Quantify accomplishments. Quantify your accomplishments if you can. For example, consistently ranked as number 1 or number 2 sales associates out of a team of approximately 20 sales professionals. Or awarded Employee of the Month twice during 8-month employment. Or planned and implemented activities for a group of 8 to 10 elementary school students. Or organized an awards ceremony attended by over 200 student athletes. So this is something that you can definitely use in data-driven companies. I work as an HR journalist and a recruiter for Amazon. Amazon is a data-driven company, so they love numbers. So most of you, I believe, are going to be applying for tech companies, big tech companies, and obviously tech companies are data-driven. They love numbers, especially in operations. They see everything through numbers. So you want to throw in those numbers there. That way they can see that you're able to use metrics, you're able to quantify your accomplishments. It's not just something that you made up. It's not just something that you are awarding yourself with. You have actual numbers to prove what you're saying. So just like here, you can see if there's any numbers that you can use in your resume to quantify your accomplishments, it's going to be a big plus on your resume, especially for the big tech data-driven companies. Action verbs. So that's something you definitely want to use on your resume. Write down 3 transferable skills that you have. Review the action verbs in your packet. And write each transferable skill starting with an action verb. So just like we saw in those previous examples, you want to start everything with an action verb. That way they can see what you actually did rather than, these were my duties, rather than just listing your duties. Okay, now what to do before you start writing your resume. So as we already mentioned, every job is different. Every job is looking for a different skill set. So you may want to have one universal resume that you can send to most jobs. However, if you're applying to a variety of jobs, if you're applying not just for one position, you have skills in different areas and different departments, and you want to apply for different jobs, I would highly suggest that you recreate your resume based on the job that you're looking for. So first you need to establish what type of job are you seeking. It can help to have a specific objective or use the position to craft a targeted resume. You also want to ask yourself what type of person and experience are required for the job. You can find this information through research, informational interviewing, and networking. And you also want to ask yourself, what skills and abilities do you have to offer an employer, and which ones will you stress? You need to focus on those that support your career objective. And another reason why this is important is I'm going to share with you how recruiters look for suitable candidates. So whenever we're sourcing through LinkedIn or Indeed or different platforms, we're only inputting keywords, and by those keywords we are searching for our suitable candidates. So you want to make sure that you have those keywords. Otherwise, if you don't have those keywords, we cannot find you, right? Because most of those searches, how we source, which is when recruiters look for candidates, most of those searches are based on those keywords and they're optimized. So for a recruiter to be able to discover you, to find you through LinkedIn and reach out to you, without you even having to apply for a job, the best way is to look for those keywords. Now, what kind of keywords you're looking for? You want to make sure that whenever you read a job descriptions, there's usually a portion where it talks about the job requirements, right? Requirements for the job. So you want to make sure whatever, if it's SQL or if it's knowledge of coding, whatever requirements for the job are posted in that job descriptions, you want to make sure that you're matching those in your resume. Obviously, I'm not telling you to lie. I'm not telling you to just try to copy all of those words in your resume. However, if you have those skills, make sure you put it in your resume. That way, whenever the recruiter is looking for passive candidates, they will be able to find you easily thanks to having those keywords, because that means you have the exact skill set that the recruiter is looking for. Okay, so that will, if someone is interested in being drawn as a passive candidate, this is definitely an effective technique to use to be discovered by recruiters before you even start applying, or if you want to be able to get job offers even without actively applying all the time. Okay, so now let's move to the cover letter and its purposes. So the cover letter accompanies your resume, and its purposes are to demonstrate a match between the employee's needs and your attributes. It's supposed to also demonstrate your knowledge of the organization and why you would be a good fit if hired. It's also supposed to showcase your communication skills, writing ability, and writing style. Now, the main portion would be knowledge of the organization and why you would be a good fit if hired. That should be the main purpose of your cover letter. Not every company or not every job position requires a cover letter. However, if it does, it's a great thing. And I'm going to tell you why. It's a great thing because this is your platform where you can demonstrate how much you know about an organization, how invested you are in the hiring process, how interested you are in the job, and why you would be a good fit. So this is definitely something that I would say when it comes to cover letters, it's not one fits all. The cover letter should be amended based on what role you're applying for and which organization you're applying for. And I'm going to tell you why it's important, because knowing the information about an organization that you're applying for shows the recruiter that you're invested, that you're going to be a motivated employee, and that you are willing to put in the work to research information about the new organization. So whenever you're writing that letter, I would suggest first get some information about the company that you're applying for. That way you can tell them, you can share in your cover letter, I'm applying for this job because this is what I like about this company, and these are the qualities that this company has that also reflect my qualities, and this is why I think I would be a good match. So that would be one of the most effective ways to get the attention of a recruiter. If you can demonstrate that you already know something about a company and you already did your research, that's definitely going to set you apart from majority of the candidates that just talk about their accomplishments, talk about themselves, but don't really put in the effort to learn about the company they're applying for, which already shows the recruiter they're not going to be as motivated and invested as you, who already researched something about a company and knows some facts. So for example, you can, let's say you're applying for Twitter, right? You want to tell them, well, I'm applying to this company because I really like their leadership principles. I really like the fact that, Twitter is able to make this amount of money as a revenue through, using these strategies. So you want to use their accomplishments as a way to praise them and show them that this is something that you also believe in, and that this is something that you would like to reflect in your work as well. Okay, let's talk about the cover letter guidelines. Single space your letter and double space between paragraphs. Use a business letter format. Keep your paragraphs brief and relevant. Tailor your letter to the position and company. You're selling yourselves, so show how your qualifications match the job duties and company goals. Proofread your letter carefully and ask one or two others to proofread it as well. Misspellings and grammatical errors communicate that you are a poor writer or are careless. Don't let this happen to you. So yeah, definitely have someone proofread it, because as we already mentioned, that one grammatical error can really distract the recruiter from all of your accomplishments, and it may make you seem like you do not really put in the effort and you're not really detail oriented, which is a unique skill nowadays, and it's something that most employers are looking for, because it's also transferable skills that every employer would like to have. Okay, now let's talk about the structure. A good cover letter is typically short. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to answer. Perfect. I'm definitely going to answer those questions at the end. Thank you. Keep them coming. Thank you for the questions. A good cover letter is typically short, usually 3 to 5 paragraphs. The opening paragraph should catch the employer's attention and state what position you are applying for and why. So that's number one. The middle paragraph should develop your team by providing specific examples of your qualifications. The last paragraph should close by requesting an interview and providing contact information. And let's talk some more about those paragraphs. So the first paragraph of the cover letter. Employers receive hundreds of resumes for each position. You want your cover letter to stand out, so start with an opening that grabs attention immediately. Following are few examples of openings that are effective and interesting. So let's read through the example. State how your skills and background match the job and are a benefit to the organization. So for example, in December, I will earn a degree in interior design at California State University in Chicago. I recently completed a job with an interior designer in Northern California, where I was given the responsibility of running a fine art gallery and participating in multiple interior design projects. I'm looking for the opportunity to perform in this capacity for Arthur McLaughlin Associates. Please consider my resume in regards to your design consultant position. So here you can see what we already discussed. The candidate here used the name of the company. So that already shows the recruiter that they're not just sending one generic letter to everyone, but they're invested in researching about a company. They actively use the name of the company, and they are specifically interested in this position. They're not just applying right and left and just not even paying attention to the role that they're applying for. That would be the worst nightmare of a recruiter, is someone who is just applying right and left, not even reading the job description. That means that person might not even match those skills, but they're just trying to get any type of job. And for the recruiter, that means that it's not a candidate that would be matching the skills. It's not someone they're looking for. So you definitely want to if you at least use the name of the company and throw in some fact about a company in your first paragraph, it will definitely catch the attention of the recruiter. Okay. Also, another thing you want to use in the first paragraph would be name drop. For example, Laura Flower, who supervised my work as an intern, which your company recommended that I apply for the position of assistant sales manager. And then you can follow with a description of your qualifications. So this is something that will definitely catch attention if you throw in, a name. If someone recommended you for a job, or if you know someone in the company, it's a great way to start. It's a great way to start the cover letter, as it will show the recruiter that you actually know personally someone from the company. That way you know something more about the company. That means that you would be, a good fit, because you obviously talk to the person, you research something about a company, and you know that this is something that where you could thrive and where you could be for the company, and you could mutually benefit from that relationship of having you as an employee. Another example, one of my friends, Mark Starr, works as a manager for XYZ company. He recommended that I write you about a position as a management trainee. He speaks highly of your company and believes my leadership and past sales experience would be an attribute to your organization. So that's another example how you can use your whoever recommended you for the job, or whoever you know in the company, in the name drop. Number 3, refer to company or career research you have done. So for example, I read the April 20 issue of the Wall Street Journal with great interest. The article Future Directions of 10 Corporations mentioned that your company is looking for college graduates with marketing backgrounds who are bilingual in Vietnamese and English for your new office in Saigon. Follow with a description of your qualifications and how they match company needs. So the best way to go about your company research would be research one accomplishment or something that the company might be famous for, but not many people know, and just throw it in there. That way, the company or the recruiter will know that you value the company already, which indicates that you would be an asset to a company that, you are so invested and interested in, and you value them enough to research about them and find out about their accomplishments. That way you can show them that this is the reason why you're applying, for this specific job, because the accomplishments of that company caught your attention, because you're already thinking ahead and you're thinking how you could be of value to that company and how you could help them with those accomplishments, because they actually are aligned with your values and with your work ethic and with something that you're trying to reach as a goal in your career. So that will also show motivation if you can incorporate some of the company's accomplishments into your letter, into your cover letter. Because obviously if you're, the way the recruiter thinks is if you're interested in the accomplishments of the company, that means you're already motivated to help with those accomplishments and accomplish even more. Okay, number 4, refer to the content of the employer's ad. For example, when I read your ad in the Daily News for a civil engineer, I almost believed you had written it for me. And you can follow it with this description of your qualifications. And also you can ask a question that will show your interest. For example, are you looking for an individual who has set sales records for 2 different companies and has reorganized an ad campaign to reach thousands more customers? Follow with the details of this accomplishment. Or for example, how much are rising production costs affecting your bottom line? You immediately give an example of how your work can improve the bottom line. So you're already showing them in this example that you're already thinking how you could improve something, which is something that most candidates don't even think about when just applying for a job. So you would be already ahead of all of them if you're asking questions like that. Okay, now let's talk about the middle paragraph. You want to write about how your experiences and education match what the employer is looking for. You can expand on the main points you introduced in the opening and bring up new examples. You can provide specific examples as to how your qualities meet the employer's qualifications. So, for example, my organizational communication major has given me 4 years of public speaking experience and an extensive background in professional writing. Or another example, competing on my college basketball team for 3 years strengthened my teamwork skills and provided the opportunity to build strong relationships with my peers. So again, you're showing the transferable skills that we talk about, and that's something that you definitely want to use in your resume, but you also want to use it in your cover letter. So it doesn't. A lot of the times, candidates think that they did something that will not be of value to certain job that they're applying for. However, they can always pinpoint a certain transferable skill from that job or something that they just learned, something that how they develop themselves in that role. It doesn't even have to be a specific skill. You can also just use an example of how you developed yourself in a role, which is a great skill that employers are looking for. They want to make sure that you're coachable and they want to make sure that you can develop. So, for example, whenever Amazon is looking at candidates, the number one thing they're trying to assess when assessing candidates during interviews, once they make it to the interview, but also whenever they're assessing their resumes and their cover letters, is the upside growth potential. The upside growth potential means that, or is something that indicates if this person has the ability to grow. Obviously, such a huge data-driven booming companies that constantly grow, they do not want to hire someone who might be great at what they're doing. However, there's no potential for growth. They know what they know, but they're not willing to learn. They're set in their ways. They don't want to go with the new trends. They don't want to learn new things. This is not what companies are looking for, right? I mean, at least the interesting companies that we all want to apply for, the big tech companies. Most of those companies, they're looking for someone who is reflecting the company's principles, which is, being able to develop yourself, being able to learn, being coachable, and having that growth potential. So that growth potential is really essential aspect that the recruiters are looking for when it comes to the cover letter, resume, and interview, the whole hiring process. So you want to show whatever experience you're addressing in your middle paragraph in your cover letter, that you have a growth potential and you're able to learn in your current role or in school. You're always constantly learning, you're constantly improving, and you're constantly developing yourself. And that way you will show the recruiter that this is how you will grow. Once you get hired, this is where you are now. But you're showing them that, your past experience is showing that you have a track of having the ability of growth and learning new things and just really progressing in whatever you're doing. Okay, let's talk more about the middle paragraph. Employers consider achievements to be indicators of future success, so do not be modest about yours. Using numbers as in the example demonstrates achievement. Show how your experience and achievements match the position requirements or company goals. The better job you do at matching yourself to the position, the more likely you are to get an interview. So I'm going to read the example. While I served as the fundraising chair for my fraternity, I planned the campaign, researched and identified possible donors, and organized phone solicitation efforts, visits to potential donors and several one-day events. As a result, we raised $50,000, 200% increase over the prior year. To be successful, I trained teams in solicitation techniques, acted as mediator when tempers became frayed, and recruited committees who worked together to anticipate and resolve difficulties before they became crisis. So you want to show them how you can quantify your accomplishments. Again, this is something that the big data driven tech companies love to hear because they rely so much on data and they basically use a data science approach, which means that most of the calculated decisions that they make are based on metrics. They're based on numbers. They don't just make a decision because someone thinks it's a good idea. They are taking calculated risks based on metrics and based on data. So you want to show that you already have this in mind and you already are able to show some data and you're able to use metrics to quantify your accomplishments. Okay, now let's talk about a final paragraph. Your closing paragraph or sentence should encourage action. Offer one or two choices, either you call me or I will call you. If you have a personal connection with the employer and actually have a personal contact name and phone number, the I will call you approach is good. These days, it's often difficult to get contact information, so don't worry if you can follow up. Finally, thank the employer for taking the time to read and consider your letter and resume. So for example, you can say, as I have described above, I am confident my sales skills, organizational abilities, and technical expertise will benefit the name of the company. I will call you in a week to check on the status of my application. I look forward to setting up a time for an interview. Thank you for your consideration. Another example, I would appreciate the opportunity to meet and further discuss my qualifications and your new graduate registered nurse program. Please contact me at a number email. I'll look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time and consideration. So that's for the final paragraph. So definitely make sure you want to thank them to show your manners as well. Okay, now let's talk about the difference between the resume and the cover letter. Resume is a matter-of-fact document, right? You just want to list your accomplishments and you want to highlight what value you can bring to the company. You want to also list your skills, experiences, education. You want to include scope, size, and achievements. Now, the difference when it comes to cover letter, you want to show the recruiter your enthusiasm for the role. You want to show your passion. You want to show your ability to persuade. One of the, transferable skills that recruiters are looking for is, for example, the ability to persuade, which is also sometimes called the ability to influence. So you want to show them that you can influence others by using different techniques in order to get them to do what you need them to do sometimes. Because a lot of the times in your career, you will find yourself in a position where you need to get someone else's buy-in and you need to influence them in a way where they will want to be persuaded by you so that you can get their buy-in, so that you can basically get them, to agree with your strategy or with your project. So the persuasiveness is something that you can show just by writing your cover letter and just by, showing how you can sell yourself. The cover letter should also include how your skills meet the position needs. and how and why you can help. And let's go back to the resume. When it comes to resume, I would say the biggest mistake that candidates do is instead of listing accomplishments, they list tasks. So I hope you will remember something from our session. However, if you only want to remember one most important thing to take away from this session, it would be do not list tasks, list achievements. So whenever you're writing about your school experience, your projects, or your job experience, do not just list tasks, what you did, because when it comes to most jobs, the recruiters already know, the things that you did. You want to make sure you turn those tasks into accomplishments. So instead of writing, I was, in charge of, let's say, coding, or I was in charge of, creating a software for a new company, you need to turn it into, I created this software which resulted in, saving this amount of money for this company. That's a simple turnaround. That's how you turn a task into accomplishment. So try to, even if you already wrote your resume, look at those tasks, look at that each task. If you already did it that way, which is okay, because most candidates just write a list of tasks. If you already did it, look at each task and try to turn it into accomplishment. Try to see what is the biggest accomplishment that you did in that specific task, and how you can form it into a sentence, how you can show the employer that this is that you went above and beyond. This is not just that you were in a position where you had a job and this is what was assigned to you and this is what you did. No, you want to show them that you had a job and this was your task. However, this is what I did with that. This is what I accomplished with having that task. That means that I didn't just do my job, I went above and beyond, and I actually created something out of that task, and I achieved something that was not expected of me, and I achieved something that I did on top of what was required. So if you can turn your resume, your tasks into that will definitely show the employer that this is someone unique and this is someone that can bring value, and this is someone that will always go above and beyond, and they will accomplish more than what is required, and they're self-starters, and they can be innovative, and they can essentially come up with new ideas and achieve something more than what has been assigned to them. And that's obviously a dream of every employer. So this is definitely how you want to sell yourself and how you want to show the employer that you are the best candidate for them, because you're going to bring something new. You're going to basically show them how you can turn a simple task into an achievement. Okay, so let's go to your questions. Okay. Okay, so the first question is, could you let us know what kind of resume Amazon likes in your experience? So exactly what I described. Amazon loves resumes that are, first of all, matching the job description. So if you're applying for a job, I would highly recommend, please read through the job description and basic qualifications. Whenever we post a job, there's always a paragraph that lists the basic qualifications. You want to make sure that you're matching those. There's also another paragraph that has additional qualifications. If you match those as well, it's great. That's an asset, that's a plus. However, if you want to make it at least, to the interview, if you want to score an interview, you definitely want to make sure you are matching those basic qualifications, because if you're not, then obviously the recruiters are looking for someone who already has that skill set for the role that is listed in the basic qualifications. So that would be number one. And number two, as I said, the achievements, not having just tasks on your resume, but having achievements, because Amazon and all of, most of the big new data-driven tech companies are looking for self-starters, they're looking for innovators, they're looking for candidates who will be able to take on additional responsibility and come up with new ideas and do more than what is asked for them. Someone who is already ahead of the game, who is already thinking about the next step and what is needed, not just whatever is being asked of them, but they're already thinking ahead of the game, and they will come up with some innovative ideas, and they will be able to basically add value by creating something new and innovative. The next question is that very important that providing cover letter when applying for jobs? So generally, only when you're being asked. So a lot of the job postings, they will ask you to attach a cover letter. I would say it's not necessarily important if they're not asking for that. You can definitely help your job application, because it will show the recruiter that you truly care and you're really invested in that specific job. However, for example, Amazon, we do not require cover letters. It's only the resume that you apply with, and there is for most roles there is no cover letter for that. So it's definitely not a must-have for every single job. It used to be in the past. It's becoming less and less common. However, it can definitely always help. But yeah, as I said, it's not a requirement for every job unless the job application is asking for it. Should we change your cover letter every time? So I would say only if you're applying for a different job position, then you should definitely change some of the wording based on the skill set that they're looking for. That way you can show your unique skill set for that particular job. The only thing you should always change in the cover letter is the company that you're applying for. So you definitely want to throw in that name of the company that you're applying for in that cover letter. That way you can show the recruiter that you're not just sending a generic letter, and you're not just, they're not the application number 150 where you didn't even read the job description, you're just applying right and left. So that will show them that you're actually invested, you know something about a company, you know something about a role, which means that you would be a match for the role, because you read through the description and you know that these are the skills that you have. When we write the resume, is the GPA important? So you definitely want to include your GPA, especially if you have a good one. Hopefully most of you do. So you definitely want to include it on your resume if you can, as that can show the employer your the good work that you put in during your studies. What is the best time to apply for jobs online? So I would say the best time would be definitely, within the first week. For example, Amazon, I know we usually post jobs for 1 week and then we assess the candidate. So within the first week of the job being posted would be the best time. But anytime it's posted, there's never a wrong time to apply for a job. As long as it's posted, you can keep applying. Some of the jobs are obviously harder to fill, so they can be posted for months before we find the right candidate. So there's really no wrong time. If you're the right candidate, it doesn't matter if you apply as the first or the last. Unless we find the best candidate, we're going to keep looking. Okay, hi Winkry. I have a question that when the interviewee asked me to explain one project that I have worked before, except to introduce the project process, what else I can share with him? What the interviewer wants to know from this question? That's a great question. So essentially, whenever the person who's interviewing you is asking you to explain the project that you worked on, what he's essentially looking for is he wants to know your thought process. He wants you to walk him through the project that you had and how you handled it. So he's not just looking at the process. What he's really looking at is what was your thought process, because based on your past behavior and how you acted in that particular situation, how you resolved the project, how you managed the project, this will tell him this is how this candidate will act in the future, and this is how they will handle future projects. So you definitely want to share as many details as you can regarding how you handle the project, what kind of what kind of project was given to you. Second, how you handle the project. Third, you want to show him, what action you actually took, how you executed the project, and what was the resolution of the project. And also at the same time, when you're explaining this, you want to walk him through your thought process. What were you thinking of? What were your accomplishments? What did you learn from delivering the project? If there's maybe something that you would have done differently. So essentially, he's really looking at what is your thought process when you are working and when you're managing a project, because that will show him how you will manage a project in your potential future role. And he wants to make sure that that candidate is someone who is able to manage projects independently, think ahead of the game, come up with new ideas, and deliver projects despite any obstacles or challenges. And also, if there are any challenges, you want to make sure you explain to the interviewer how you tackled those challenges and how you overcame them and how you resolved the situation and how you delivered and managed the project despite those obstacles or challenges. Okay, another questions. How many years work experience can I write on my resume? For example, I've worked in a company for 6 years. Can I select only 3 years related work experience on the resume? You don't have to necessarily restrict it just for 3 years. You can include, all 6 years, which, is a great thing because it shows tenure. It shows that you're able to stay with a company for some time. That doesn't mean it's wrong nowadays to be, with a company for a shorter period of time. However, it's a great thing where you can show that you had some tenure and you can, show the progression. That's the key word. So even if that other job that you had in the company is not relevant to the job that you're applying for, it might be something where you develop yourself into the next role. So you definitely want to show that progression. This is something that they're looking at as far as, the growth potential that I was referring to earlier. That is so important. So if the first role that you had is something that was that helped you to develop into the new role, you definitely want to show them, because that shows that you have that growth potential within a company and you were able to move up. If someone has only 3.3 GPA, so if you believe it's something that is not gonna reflect well on you, then you definitely don't have to include it. But as I said, if you have a good GPA, then you definitely want to show it off on your resume. So it's not necessary to include it if you don't feel like including it. Does US work experience matter a lot for international students? Would projects be a good supplement if there is a lack of US work experience? Yes, definitely projects, volunteer projects, or anything outside of your, outside of your norm would be great thing to include. You do not necessarily have to have US work experience. If you, match the basic qualifications, if you match the skill set that the job posting is looking for. Okay, can I reject the potential employer to contact with current employer? Yeah, there's certainly, usually when you're applying for a job, they even ask you, whenever they're asking for references, they ask, can we contact this employer? And you can definitely mark it as no. So yeah, you have every right to do so. You're not obliged to, give them the consent to contact your current employer. And most of I see where you're coming from. You definitely, no one, if you're already in a role and you're just looking around applying for different jobs, no one wants the new recruiter to be calling their current job. And this is not a common practice. So it's not something you have to worry about. Recruiters do understand that people are in a job where they are looking for different opportunities. So they would definitely not just, call your current employer to ask for references if you currently work there. So it's not a common practice among recruiters to do, because we do understand that you want to keep something like that confidential. What is the best way to update the recruitment information? So I'm not sure I understand correctly what kind of recruitment information, if you can provide more information on that particular question. I'm trying to understand how that was meant, but yeah, if you can provide more information. But yeah, I mean, if you already put in an application, there's probably not much you can do to update it, but you can always update your resume, obviously. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Going off the last question, do you guys weight international internship lesser compared to American internship? We do not. We do not see it as a lesser thing. Matter of fact, that could be considered discrimination if someone, would see something as a less just because, someone has a different origin or someone has non-American experience. So yeah, all that matters is that, your experience, your skills, what you can bring to the table. We do not look at it as something less. Perfect. So I believe we are at the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for the questions. They were great questions, and it definitely helped to clarify some of the things that others may have been wondering about as well. So thank you so much again, and good luck with your search and with your resume and cover letter writing.
Thank you so much, Nella. 非常感谢大家。现在是9点半了，所以我们的讲座现在就结束了。如果大家还有更多的问题的话，请可以在我们的微信里面去留言。然后今天呢，我们的讲座就 Thank you very much, Nella, and thank everybody, and have a good night.